Welcome back, everybody. We got the zombie squad out here today. Barry, Eric, Ray, and Chad, and we're going to be doing some crazy experiments out here today. Don't do anything you see us doing out here in the field at home.
That's right, Barry. Science experiments can be dangerous and should only be handled in the supervision of trained professionals or, in our case, individuals with years of experience.
That is correct.
Don't do it, people, please. All right, welcome back, everyone. Today, we have another science experiment for you. What we're going to be doing, I got to thinking about it, and I thought, you know, what would happen if your ammo got so cold that, I mean, unfathomably cold? And then I got to think, I was like, well, what's the coldest thing I can get a hold of? Well, I couldn't get any liquid nitrogen, but what we have here is a super chilled alcohol bath. This is a 100% grain alcohol, and we've got blocks of dry ice in it. And what the dry ice is doing is it's cooling it down to around negative 110 degrees, which is pretty dang cold. It's colder than most people are going to experience in everyday field scenarios.
It's colder than anything on Earth.
It's colder than anything on Earth. So what we're basically looking at here is worst case scenario of how cold your ammunition could get. Now I want to mention right now, we do not want you to try any of this at home. We're serious. This is very dangerous. We don't know what's going to happen. We've taken necessary precautions. We have medics on hand. If something should happen, we're prepared. So what we're going to do is we're going to freeze down a variety of ammunition. We're going to try some 12 gauge, and we have a few 45 ACP ball that we're going to freeze down. We're going to shoot them out of this high point. Then we have a grand finale planned for when all this is over. So let's get started. I think what we're going to do first, we're going to freeze down a couple of 45 ACPs.
Okay. 45 ACP.
All right, so 45 ACP ball in a negative 110 degrees.
Oh, they're boiling cold.
Why don't you come over and get a shot of this, Chad? I'm going to add some more dry ice to the mixture. We're going to get these things nice and cold.
Ready.
All right, we can see we've added lots of the dry ice to our alcohol mixture. Now, what I will tell you while this is coming down to the temperature we want is that you really can't use just any old alcohol when you're performing these experiments. If you use, let's say, 40 to 60% isopropyl, you'll get a gelling phenomenon that'll occur that'll make it a little bit difficult to perform these experiments. You want to use an alcohol that is as purest quality you can find. And the alcohol we're using is actually pure racing ethanol. So it's very, very pure alcohol.
Right.
This is a mixed alcohol that's used for racing purposes. So we're gonna get this nice and cold. We want it. See, we're already starting to get a little bit of icing on the surface.
We'd like to mention to the subscribers that ammunition, when it's extremely cold, people have noticed this when they're hunting in Alaska at sub-freezing temperatures, the ammunition is not quite up to par. It'll still kill, but the velocity is way down. Now I think the coldest recorded temperature ever was like 80 below, and a fellow was chopping wood with an axe, and his axe head shattered. That is extreme cold. This is, like Eric said, about 110 degrees below freezing, so this is colder than anywhere you're going to encounter anywhere.
That's right. All right, this ammo is extremely cold. All right, we're going to load it into the 45. I mean, you can see that these things, oh yes, they're cold even through the gloves.
Oh yeah. They're frozen, as solid as they're gonna get.
As solid as they're gonna get. Now, one thing to remember about gunpowder is that gunpowder is an organic compound that breaks down, changes, ages, just like any other organic compound will. So, we see this is nice and cold. We're gonna go ahead and get over to the range here and try them out. You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Negative 110 degree 45 ACP out of High Point pistol, take one. Okay, we had a malfunction, but I think that's the gun and not the ammo. So far the ammo is functioning as to be expected.
clear.
All right, we fired the 45 ACP High Point with the frozen 45 ball, and we found that the accuracy definitely suffered. I feel that the recoil wasn't as heavy as a normal 45 would be, which leads me to believe that it definitely lowers the pressure and power factor of the rounds by having them that cold. But they did function. They did not fail.
Well, the gun short stroked one round. That might have been because the power was down a little bit.
Right, so the power factor is definitely down. Of course, as expected, there's no adverse pressure signs on the brass. We're definitely not developing any dangerous pressures. So it definitely decreases pressure rather than spike pressure. Now, of course, in a future experiment, we will show how hot temperatures will increase the pressure curve of a given lot of ammo. We do have some very, very minuscule and hard to detect cracks on the mouth of each casing, which leads me to believe that we do have a little bit of hydrogen embrittlement or something similar. So it does make the brass more brittle. What we have now in the vat are some 12 gauge that are being chilled down to negative 110 degrees. We have a breaching round, a number 8 Fiocchi target load, and we have one of Barry's wax slugs. So we're going to try each one of those out of this little topper, and we're going to see how they do. All right, we have our frozen 12 gauge that Barry's bringing us. Now my prediction is that the plastic is now going to be so brittle that it's going to become like a cut shell, and that whole end of it's going to come out of there. That's my prediction. All right, so first we know Fiocchi, number 8 target load, number 8 bird. Okay, so we see that the shell,
No problem with the shell.
no problem with the shell. It didn't crack. It did split. Okay, the shell did split. Now also, one thing that I want to note about this is that there's unburnt powder in the barrel, which leads me to believe that the priming mixture could have suffered somewhat in terms of the strength of the priming mixture. Being that cold, it could have had something to do with it. Of course, this isn't a highly scientific experiment in terms of the way it's conducted, but we're just reporting the results as we see them. I do have unburnt powder in the barrel, but we're going to go ahead and follow up with a waxer and see what that does, and then a breacher. Now this waxer is the one I really want to see. Now that joker's cold. You see that coming off of that? In fact, I need to get rid of it. It's burning my hand. All right, waxer.
Power was way down.
Power was way down.
Way down.
All right, ready?
Power was way down on that shell. It sounded like a squib load almost.
Yeah.
But doesn't appear to be any damage to the casing.
And of course, you know, lots of unburned powder residue in the barrel. So is that still cold at all? Or
Oh yeah.
So it's still cold even after being fired.
But that round was way down.
See if it crushes at all.
No.
Not splitting?
No.
Okay. What we see from the target is that the wax was very brittle, and we're assuming it just kind of fell apart and, you know, dumped all its energy once it left the muzzle. So cold shotgun shells definitely not as powerful as one that's at normal temperature. I mean, you got to think, these are negative 110 degrees. They're very cold.
When Eric fired this, I haven't any hearing protection, and it sounded almost like just a primer.
All right, so now the breacher.
Now the breaching round.
Now, the breacher has compressed metal shavings into a plug with a stabilizing fin. Let's see how this runs. I'm real curious to see what this will do. Rolling?
Rolling. That sounded full power. That sounded full power. The shell casing is not cracked.
Still cold?
Yeah.
So still cold even after being fired. That's how cold.
But that round sounded full power.
That's right. Sure did. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we let's kick this up a notch. We've tried frozen ammo, but what about a frozen gun?
Let's do that.
Let's do a frozen gun.
Let's freeze this high point.
Let's freeze the high point.
Okay.
All right, we have our favorite gun here today, the high point. Now, I'm going to just make sure you guys know right now, this is a very, very, very dangerous experiment. Please don't do it. We have a loaded high point. We're going to freeze it down.
Boiling cold. Oh my God.
Here.
It's boiling cold.
Let me grab a welding glove real quick.
Oh yeah. That thing is cooking merrily.
That's nuts.
We're going to let this thing get really cold.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure it lays all the way down in there. All right, we're going to go ahead and what we're going to do, I'm going to add some more chips around the side there. Oh, frostbite.
She's boiling merrily. Oh yeah. Nothing like a high point in the pot.
Rolling, Chad?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Rolling. Watch yourself, Barry.
All right.
Okay, we're going to draw our high point out. This sucker is very cold, and again, people do not do this, please.
They sounded full power.
So you got a little jam in there.
That magazine is so cold it will burn your fingers.
That is very, very cold.
Eric, you don't know it, but you hit one of them plates.
Did I?
Yeah.
I mean, even with the ammo shooting through the gun and the powder burning and everything, it's still just cold to the touch. I mean, so cold that it's dangerous.
Right.
Barry, why don't you go over there and take the mag? It's okay to touch. It's just real cold. Load me up a mag of full power ammo. I mean, this thing is, you rolling?
Yeah.
This thing is so cold that the inside of the barrel is frosting, even after firing those live ammo out of it. This thing is very, very cold. I'm just surprised it still works. So it's good to know that in a situation when you're out in the middle of nowhere or whatever, you find your frozen gun, as long as the barrel's clear of obstructions, this thing should function. And this is a high point.
Very cold, very cold.
Even the mag is still cold. Now the reason that I'm holding it offhand like I am and then squeezing it with this finger is because, for one, I can't fit my gloves in there, and two, the trigger is so difficult to squeeze, I have to push really hard. So that's why we're doing it that way. Let's try again, this time with full power ammo.
Works fine.
Barrel is still cold to the touch, even after all of that work. The barrel is developing condensation on the inside still. And we're talking frost, just like you see on the outside of the gun. So,
Pretty neat experiment.
pretty neat experiment.
Yeah.
What happened, Barry?
Well, surprisingly, before the when the firing pin finally got free where it could move, the gun fired fine. The gun is super cold. It's still super cold.
Don't touch.
I'm surprised that it fired that way, and all the rounds sounded like they were full power too. They didn't sound like they were squibbed or reduced the velocity in any way.
That's right.
In retrospect, we could have chronographed them, but you know that's okay. We're listening. We're experimenting right now.
That's
with
right.
Frozen guns, and in a little while we're going to go the other extreme.
In the next video, you'll definitely experience the other extreme of that.
That is correct.